Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to all of you. I am Priyanshi, welcoming you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and First Tree Group to our webinar on Solar Market Outlook, the Philippines 2022. Thank you all the attendees for joining us today. Let me briefly take you to the overview of today's event. The webinar will give an in-depth overview of market trends, growth drivers, key challenges and opportunities in the PV segment, and will brief you about the technological developments and market growth opportunities on the basis of the current national landscape. Now, I take the pleasure to thank our sponsor, Trina Solar, for their immense support to organize the event. Requesting my team to play the sponsor video of Trina Solar. Thank you so much, team, for playing the video. So now it's time to begin with our presentation by Mr. Lim Xiong Boon, who is the Head of Product and Marketing, APAC, Trina Solar. Sir, over to you. You can share your screen now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you, Solar Portal, for organizing the event today. And thank you to all the panelists for the participation, and of course to the attendees that spare your precious time to participate in our event today. So let me share my screen now. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. So let me begin. So I'll start off with a brief introduction about Trina Solar, just to refresh everyone again on the background of Trina Solar. So we are actually founded in 1997. So till now, we have about more than 20 years of experience in solar PV module manufacturing. So along our journey, as our company progress, these are the few key milestones that has happened in our company progression. So of course, in 2020 was one of the very major milestones that we have released onto the Shanghai Star Market, and also kick off the 600 watt plus ultra high power PV modules era. So in terms of globalization, Trina, we are well covered on a global basis, and to date, we have about 70 gigawatt of accumulated shipment worldwide, and more than 100 customers on a global basis. Myself, I'm based in Singapore, which is our Asia Pacific HQ. So from here, we are serving the market like ASEAN, India, Australia. So we're also happy to be ranked top most bankable module supplier for 6 years in a row by Bloomberg New Energy Finance. So we're definitely a bankable module supplier and with a long history of PV module manufacturing. So in terms of our footprint in Asia Pacific, actually we have shipped almost 9 gigawatt cumulative between 2017 to 2020. So of course, we will also update again on our 2021 numbers. So which will be, I think, about the range of another 3 plus to 4 gigawatt shipment Asia Pacific. So in terms of leading technology, so since early last year, we have launched our ultra high power 210 mm Vertex module. It has already been selling in the market for the past 1 year plus. And at the same time, we also have our N-type iTOPCon modules. So these are some of the models are in mass production, but these are targeted for specific markets at the moment, while we are considering to expand the supply to other markets also. Then on the right, we also have the reserve technology, which is the HJT technology. So it is still in the study progress and looking for a suitable time to bring it into the mass production and offer to our customers. So just a quick look back at how the module power has developed over the past 10 years. So you can see the development has been an average of between 5 to 10 watt per year basis. But since 2020 first half, from the start of the 2020 first half, the power bin increase has been exponential. So you can see now we are looking at 670 watt and almost 700 watt era. So when we first started the 600 watt era, there was only about like 30 plus companies that's inside the whole ecological alliance. But fast forward now 1.5 years later, so we have almost 90 companies that's already part of this alliance. So from the upstream to the downstream, we have a lot of suppliers, a lot of partners that are well equipped and ready to take on this 600 watt plus era. So this is our Trina Vertex family product series. So you can see on the left is our Vertex S, which is up to about 4 or 5 watt. This is targeted for residential market. And in the center, we have the 1819 series, which is about 500 watt to 550 watt. So these are for the commercial industrial rooftops. And also we have the 2021 series, which can be used for the large commercial rooftops and also for ground-mounted utility projects. So these are some of the details in terms of the specific models that we have. So basically, we can cover the entire spectrum of the PV projects from residential to CNI commercial rooftops and also to ground-mounted utility projects. In terms of technology, these are the 4 key technologies that we have put in Trina solar modules. So from the top left, we are using the largest wafer size now, which is 210 mm. And to complement this 210 mm, we also use 12 bus bar because of the larger surface area. So we also increase the number of bus bar. And on the top right will be the non-destructive cutting. So as the cell size become bigger, so we also upgrade our cutting technology. So by using a low temperature laser to slice through the cell, we are able to maintain a similar mechanical properties as compared to cut cell. On the bottom right is our high density interconnection technology. So essentially this is to minimize the space between each cell so that we can optimize the overall dimension of the module and improve the module efficiency. So currently this is our flagship product, our highest power bin 21 series up to about 670 watt and based on the low voltage high current design. So it incorporates all the technology that was mentioned in the previous slide. And just a quick comparison with others in the market, when we use this low voltage high current design, we are able to connect more modules per string, which translate to a higher string power. This effect will cascade down at the system level to help us to save costs. So we have worked with various third parties. So one of them is Frankfurt to do the value assessment of how these high power modules can help our customers in their PV projects. So based on 2 particular sites that we have chosen, one is a 10 megawatt monofacial fixed tilt project in Germany, one is a megawatt bifacial one portrait tracker project in Spain. So in both the projects, we can see that when we use a high power bin, like so over here, G12 is referring to the 210 mm. So we compare a 665 watt to a 540 watt panel. So we are able to save both in terms of the capex, which also leads to a lower LCOE for your project. So where are the savings coming from? So mainly because of the higher power bin. So for a same size project, the total of number of modules used will be significantly reduced. And on top of this, because of our low voltage high current design, our single string powers is increased compared to the others. So both these 2 important factors will lead to savings in terms of the mounting and installation, the DC cable costs, and also in terms of the installation time, because you have less number of modules to install, less strings to connect. So the whole construction process will also be speed up. So similarly, we can also use these high power modules even for CNI rooftops. So we also did some comparison on a smaller scale commercial rooftop up to about slightly about 1 megawatt size. So you can see over here in this simple case study, we are also able to have more modules per string, and the number of strings per inverter is also reduced. So this is the overall so-called the balance of systems overview. So you can see as the more modules per string increase, we have less number of strings, so we use less connectors, shorter DC cabling, and less mountings. All this will translate to savings at the system level. So these are some of the details. We have made some assumptions in terms of the costing, but overall, for this particular case study, we are looking at 0.9 cents per watt. As we introduce this larger dimension module to the market, there was a lot of questions on how this larger dimension module, what's the difference between them and the current conversion module? Are they able to match up in terms of the reliability and performance? So to address this, Trina, we have an in-house R&D team which we have worked on various different product design and product optimization. So if we just compare Trina Vertex module as compared to the others in the market, which is probably like the 182 mm cell size, you see that even though the dimension of the Vertex module is not significantly bigger, it's still about within the similar range. Is compared to the 72 cell, is about 4.6% longer, but it's actually shorter when we compare to the 78 cell, and it's about 15% wider when we compare to the 182 cell. So to support this larger dimension module, we have actually put a lot of work into the study, and we have also upgraded our frame design. So we have slightly changed in terms of the frame chamfer design, the thickness itself. So all this we have put it in sorry. So all this we have put it into our consideration to large dimension for this large dimension module. So of course, on top of that, we also want to assure our customers that in terms of the mechanical performance, there's no issue. So we have also performed another additional 5 enhanced testing. So namely, they are the non-uniform snow load test, the static load under extreme low temperature, hill impact test, enhanced dynamic load test, and also the wind tunnel test. Done using our 670 watt module. And we can see in terms of static load, so this is the most standard test we have, which is applicable for all the modules in the market. So the standard IEC requirement, 5,400 Pascal front, 2,400 Pascal back for fixed tilt. And for tracker, we are able to get about plus 2,400 front and back 2,400 Pascal. So we have done EL testing before and after. So we do not see any micro cracks happening on the solar cell. So this is also the hill impact test for certain countries in the world. We do experience some of this hailstorm, which might cause damage to the module. Because of the size of the hill, it might cause cracks in the glass if it's not durable enough. So this is a short example of how the test was being done. So that this particular gun that will aim the ice ball of about 35 mm at the module surface itself. So after the test, we can see that there's no visual damage, and in terms of the power degradation, is well within the IEC test standards. So on top of this, we also have the enhanced dynamic load test. So essentially, this is a plus minus 1,000 Pascal. So we have do beyond what is the IEC standard. So it's about for the backstrip module, it's about 7 times IEC standard, and for our dual glass module, we have it up about 4 times the standard. So overall, we do not see any significant power degradation or visual damage to the module. So the interesting test is on the wind tunnel test. So wind tunnel test is one of the methods to verify the mechanical stability. So in this particular test, the wind load is applied from 30 meters per second to 62 meters per second with a duration of 30 seconds each. So you can see up to about 53 meters per second for both the screw and hybrid installation method. We don't see significant damage to the module. So this actually shows that the Trina Vortex module is very robust and very durable even for this kind of extreme wind condition. So as you can see earlier, because the dimension of the module has been increased, so it's about 2.3 by 1.3. So on the left is our conventional packing method, the horizontal tier stack method used for the previous generation of module. So for this larger dimension module, change it to a vertical method. So this is how it will look like inside a 40 container where the pellets are vertically placed. So although the number of pellets are less, but actually in terms of the module power, because of the higher module power, the total power per container is actually higher as compared to before. So we have already started supplying our high power modules to different projects in the world. So these are some of the examples that I would like to share with the audience here. So this is a 112 megawatt project in China. So you can see the picture of the center is how the vertical packing looks like. And on the right, we have provided a stand supporter to safely and securely place the module on site, or the workers will be able to transport the module to the construction area. So these are some more details of how the palette and the modules look like is another project in Japan. You can see because the palette itself is slightly bigger, so in terms of the operation, the forklift and the transportation on site, this one for all our customers, we provide specific training and guidelines and instruction to ensure safety of all the workers during the installation. So this example in Korea, so we can see the pallets are placed just next to the installation structures. So as mentioned earlier, Trina Vertex modules for the 19, 20, 21 series, we are using a low voltage, high current design. So we have worked with various mainstream inverter suppliers to ensure that there are compatible models that can be used. So as an example of how we connect with the inverters, so depending on the model that you choose, we are able to use one MPPT for one string to connect with the inverter. Although the total number of modules might be less compared to a conventional 2-string per MPPT, but because of the higher power bin of each module, we are still able to meet the DC-AC ratio requirement of the projects. So of course, for large-scale ground-mounted utility projects, tracker has become very popular. So we have also worked with the various tracker suppliers to make sure that the design itself are also compatible with our high power. We do have a Trina Design Assistant Tool website. So this is a sample of how it looks like, where you're able to search for the inverter brands or the tracker brands matching with Trina modules. So it will be able to show you which brands, which models are compatible for your design purposes. Lastly, I'm happy to also share that in terms of Trina Vertex 210, we have really shipped almost about 16 gigawatt worldwide, and we have almost 25 gigawatt plus of pipelines that is in place. So these are just some of the case studies that we have already supplied before, industrial and small commercial rooftops. And also that for large scale ground-mounted projects, this is one of the projects in China, already operation since 2021. And of course, Trina products can also be used for floating projects. It's another example of 50 megawatt project right now, COD since 2020. Okay, so with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you everyone for your time today.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll pass it back to you.
So now it's time to begin with our much awaited panel discussion, which is on the solar market outlook, the Philippines 2022. And to discuss this, we have in the panel with us Mr. Chris Vincent Elidon, who is from Soul Energy and also the session chair for the day. Ms. Elva Wang from Trina Solar. Ms. May Militante from MRC Allied. Mr. Robert Marlon Pareja from Pavi Green Renewable Energy. Mr. Melvin Ferreira from Maung Philippines International Corporation. Mr. Dennis Quinterio from Baker and McKenzie. Ms. Ma Cynthia Hernandez from KPMG. And Mr. Emmanuel Yu from Detroit Solar. Now I welcome all the panelists on the screen and requesting Chris sir to lead the discussion and take it ahead. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Priyanshi, and welcome to our speakers. Welcome as well to our guests who are tuning into this session right now. I'd like to just give some thank you as well to our corporate sponsor, Trina Solar. Just an anecdote. I've worked with Trina Solar before. Being an EPC, we did a 20 megawatt project using their Trina Vertex panels. And I particularly remember one very good thing about them is that when they shipped the modules, they placed as well these MC4 plugs that protect the MC4s on the panels from dust, from moisture. And it was such a small thing to do, but it made a lot of difference in the project that we were executing. It definitely helped, the performance of the panel. So Trina is a very good company, and thank you for having them as our corporate sponsor. Without further ado, we do have a limited time, and Priyanshi already mentioned the guest and esteemed speakers for this panel interview. Maybe I'll just lay some ground rules before we proceed. So to our panelists, the first question that I'll ask you guys will hopefully be related to the nature of the business that you do in the industry. And in answering the question, please feel free as well to explain a bit more of who your company is and what you do for the solar industry in the Philippines. To our audience, we will have a question and answer at the end of the session, but I think the organizers will give you as well a platform to ask further questions outside. So if I may start, I'll direct this first question to one of our ladies on the panel, as well as to Mr. Perea, Robert of Spectrum. The first question would go to May and Robert. What do you think right now are the market trends and opportunities and regulatory updates in the Philippine solar market that have given impact in the past few years? So there have been prior ones before, 10 years ago, but what have been the updates thus far? Maybe May can start off with a question.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon to the rest of the members of the panel, as well as the participants who logged in for this session. My name is May. I represent MRC Allied Incorporated. We are a publicly listed company, and one of our portfolios is into renewable energy. We are a newbie, though, because we have got into the solar space only in 2017. Now, regarding the first question on market trends, opportunity, and regulatory updates, I know for a fact that everyone knew that since feed-in tariff has been fully subscribed, especially for solar back in 2015, we have been waiting for another market breakthrough or opportunity from the Department of Energy. And I think we all had the good news a few months back when they have launched the Green Energy Auction Program. Now, from our end, in our case, we have been waiting for this program to be launched because we were awaiting on the level of capacity that it will be offered to potential developers like us. As we may know, the Department of Energy has offered about 1,260 megawatts. We're hoping that at least we share the pie, no matter how small it is, but at least be able to make it this time for GIAP because to be very honest, previously for the feed-in tariff, we have 150 megawatt solar project that didn't make it to FIT. So now we've been throwing the electricity and power to the grid for the last 5 years. Now we're hoping that we would be able to participate in GIAP since we have not gone into any PSA for that specific project. And also it is possible for an expansion. So this time we're mainly focused on GIAP. Of course, we've tried into the solar rooftop space. We have just been at a halt or on hold for a couple of months now because of the pandemic, but our project in northern Luzon has actually been running despite the pandemic. We have been collecting. We hope that now as we pick up from the pandemic, we would also pick up in terms of operations and development. So far, those are what we are looking at for the future. Hopefully, we would be able to get the updates for GIAP, especially on the rates very, very soon. So we can also start the process of the accreditation and we would be able to participate in.
Thank you. Thank you so much, May. So for those who may have missed it, the GIAP is the Green Energy Auction Program. So it's practically a feed-in tariff, but in this particular mechanism, there will be a ceiling price for the developers, from what I last heard from the implementing rules. So
Yes.
again,
Yes.
for May, yeah, exactly. So by the way, May is from MRC Allied, who is also a local developer. I'll move on over to Robert right now, who is from Pavi Green.
Hey,
Thanks, Chris.
thanks,
Yep.
Chris, and thanks, May. Again, I'm Robert Pereja. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Pavi Green Renewable Energy Inc. We are also a newbie in the renewable energy space. Pavi Green has just been incorporated last year, but we already have 100 megawatts ongoing development and construction. And speaking of trends, we are one of the users of Trina Solar's latest technology. So thank you, Elva, who is also part of one of the panelists here. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
well, for the regulatory trends, yes, there is the Green Energy Auction Program, which is very promising. But other developments also include the passing of the implementing rules and guidelines for the unsolicited proposals, or the USPs. Okay. Now developers like Pavi Green can now submit USPs to distribution utilities and electric cooperatives. Not only that, there is also another path to growth, which is the retail competition and open access. The contestability level has now, I think, dropped to 500 kilowatts, right? So 500 kilowatt and above contestable customers can now choose their own supply of generation from the different retail electricity suppliers. So this I think is a wider path to growth, the open access, because it's less complicated than the usual CSPs. And I've heard May Militante say about 150 megawatt project that did not meet the fit. Well, after this, May,
Lang,
maybe
sir, 50 lang. 50 lang.
50. Okay. Oh, yun, May. Let's talk after this about your 50 megawatt project. Okay?
There you go. There you go. What an interesting forum.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. You know that's a very big development, and I agree with you. The CSP rules that now allow for the Swiss challenge is a big factor for developers. Before there was uncertainty whether or not the investment that developers put into a project will materialize, because the CSP rule will mandate that the origin of the CSP will be the off-taker. But in this case, it will be the developer, and the developer will have the original proponent status. So what that means is Robert can pitch, for example, to Meralco and give you 2.1 pesos, maybe 2.1 pesos per kilowatt hour. And then if another company, MRC, for example, says, okay, I'll give you 2.05, Robert can now come in and say, okay, I'll match MRC's offer, and then I will win the project automatically. So very interesting developments, definitely on the regulatory side, helps in the developers overcome some of the risk that they perceive. I'll throw this next question to Mr. Melvin Ferreira. Mr. Melvin is the commercial director of Mauneng. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I pronounced that correctly. Mr. Melvin, so how do you think about the current competitive landscape of the Philippines? So can you give us more insight on which entities or institutions in the Philippines are leading in terms of installed capacity, and what do you think are their key growth drivers?
Okay, yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Engineer Melvin Carreras from Mauneng Philippines International Corporation. So let me introduce first our company. So basically, Mauneng Philippines is an integrated solar EPC O&M into financing and development of microgrid systems as well. Okay, just to give an update regarding the current capacity installed right now in the Philippines. But right now, we have 1,310 megawatts of installed capacity in the entire country. So 717 megawatts of this is located in Luzon. So 509 megawatts is located in Visayas, while 83 megawatts is installed in Mindanao. Now, the Luzon is basically representing more than 50% of the installed capacity, mainly because the majority of the population of the country is located in the Luzon Island, and also the National Capital Region is where located in Luzon. Now, potentially, looking at the solar projects awarded by the Department of Energy, the service contracts right now is comprising of 16,671 megawatts of approved solar projects in Luzon, which is representing more than 80% of the supposed capacity given by the Department of Energy. And in the Visayas and Mindanao, they have like 1,600 and 1,700 megawatts only, respectively. Now, why is it that the concentration is in Luzon? Well, basically, since it is much easier to connect to the grid into the Luzon Islands, unlike in the Visayas and Mindanao, it is going to be a different story. Now, what are the key growth drivers in the country for the development of these solar capacities? Well, basically in our country, solar power sector is still young, and it still has a plenty of room for growth, and its growth is definitely assured due to several factors. So some of these factors are the following. Number one, solving energy poverty. So in the Philippines, energy poverty remains a major problem. According to DOE data, there are 23 million households that now have access to electricity. While this is already represents 93% of the total number of Philippine households, there still remains 2.35 million Filipino households still do not have the electricity. Thus, the Department of Energy is targeting 100 electrification of all households with access to the NGCP grid within the next 2 years, and 100% electrification of off-grid households by 2040. Now, another key growth driver is ensuring the energy security in the country. Now, declining global crude supply and fluctuating oil prices are causing volatility in fuel prices, which in turn disrupts the economic growth. And the situation in the Philippines is further exacerbated by the expected full depletion in the Malampaya gas field, which supplies more than 30% of the country's energy requirement. Now, the reliance on imported fuel has made the Philippines' electricity rates among the highest in Asia. Furthermore, the troubling geopolitical developments in the Middle East, and as we speak right now, the ongoing war in Ukraine is raising local fuel prices, thereby will cause the rate of electricity as well. So, solar power can help reduce the country's dependence on imported fossil fuel. It will also reduce the country's carbon footprint, thus increasing solar power usage will greatly enhance our country's energy security.
Okay.
And another key growth driver is the additional
Mr. Melvin, hello.
Yes, sir.
Sorry,
yes, sir.
I may be a bit delayed. Thank you so much for your answer. I'm sorry to cut you short. We'll need to give time as well to the other speakers in the forum. So, but you know,
All right.
your answers are noted. I like particularly that you brought up the unelectrified households in the Philippines. That has been a big challenge, and maybe in one of the future conferences will be a discussion and a thing that the regulatory parties in the Philippines can address as well. But I'd like to move on now to the next question, if I may. I'd like to throw this question to Mr. Dennis, still along the line of market and the current landscape in the Philippines. It would be interesting to know, apart from the GIAP or the auction, are there any interesting tenders out there that we would be good to know?
Hi, Chris. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
hi.
Priyanshi, our organizers, our fellow panelists, and participants in this webinar. Thank you for that question, Chris. I think it's worth mentioning the green energy option program of the Department of Energy. As you know, this is a scheme that would permit electricity consumers to choose renewable energy as a source of electricity. So far, the Department of Energy has already issued regulations with respect to the implementation of the GEOP, or the Green Energy Option Program. And as was mentioned earlier, under the retail competition and open access rules for contestable customers, the minimum monthly average peak consumption has been reduced to 500 kilowatts. But under the GEOP, or the Green Energy Option Program, renewable energy, it has been further reduced to an average monthly peak demand of 100 kilowatt hours. So that's I think that provides a big incentive for electricity consumers to enter into contracts with renewable energy developers. I'd also like to, in terms of other coming tenders, I believe it was reported sometime in January of 2022 that the Meralco, or the Manila Electric Company, has opened a tender to contract 850 megawatts of generation capacity from RE sources. So this is broken down into around 600 megawatts capacity that will start providing power in February 2026, and the remaining 250 megawatts will begin commercial operations sometime in February 2027.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis, for that answer. Right, apart from the GIAP, there's a lot of acronyms here. The GIAP and then the GEOP. Let's make the GIAP gear instead, as mentioned by Mr. Gary Espino, the GEAR. So before I proceed to the next question, I'd just like to do a quick survey. So the dynamics of this question is, for the panels, you just raise your thumb up like this if you agree, or raise your thumb down like this if you disagree. You can also say, you don't know which way it will go yet. But we have some interesting questions in the chat box. We'll cover them later. But let me phrase Mr. Gary Espino's question this way. And again, thumbs up or thumbs down, without given the chance to elaborate on your answer. Do you believe that the tariff for solar can make sense or is possible below 3.6 pesos per kilowatt hour? 1, 2, 3, go. Thumbs up and thumbs down. Very interesting. So most of our panelists believe that the price of 3.6 is too low for now, aligned with what Mr. Gary Espino mentioned. But Mr. Manny, interestingly, it's a nice segue, because I was about to ask Mr. Manny the next question as well. Mr. Manny, you from Ditrolic Solar. I know that Ditrolic is a multinational, an integrated developer EPC as well. So how are you finding the local market? And maybe I'd also like to give you a chance to elaborate on your answer that you think that 3.6 is doable.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone, fellow panelists and attendees. I am Emmanuel Yu from Ditrolic Solar Philippines. Our company, Ditrolic, is founded in Malaysia, head office in Malaysia. We are a regional player, so we have presence in Malaysia, Bangladesh, Singapore, and of course now we are going to enter into the Philippine market. So from the fellow panelists, we can also see the market trends, and we are very positive in the solar growth in the Philippines because of the high tariff, and then the opportunity because of the demographic, our population, and the growth in the economy, one of the highest growth in Asia, and also the supply and demand as well. So we understand that the power generation market has been liberalized, like they are now more open. So we are very positive also to enter into this market. Currently, we are started with commercial and industrial rooftop, but because of the pandemic, there's a slight setback due to the uncertainty of for the financial cash flow of most of the corporation, no? And but I think this year is getting right back on track because all the projects that have been postponed will start to commence this year. And for the challenges that we think are facing, number one is for the legal side, for the legal aspect. So the permits, when for the IPP, investors often find that there's a gap between the policy and the reality of the implementation, particularly in the early stage of development and permitting application. A common thing that we think is that the procedure for RE projects are complex and lengthy, because we find sometimes the approval we need from a multitude of government agencies, and each having their own timeline, and then the permit requirement from all levels of government, from the local, such as barangay, municipal, provincial, regional, up to the national departmental authorities, can give us different variation in timing application. So this is one of the challenges. In terms of commercial, we think that because we are a foreign company, of course, the foreign ownership is limited to 40%. But I think recently, the government is trying to open up and liberalize this sector as well, to open to higher ownership of the foreign company. And of course, again, from the commercial side, the financial is also another aspect that there's a challenge, but for Ditrolic, we are ready to do our own financing for the projects that we try to get into. So we are in the process of applying for permits for the RES. And then finally, I think for the technical side, of course, I think the grid connection, the weak grid problem, and also the distance from for the transmission line quite lengthy, but quite far from the site. So these are some of the challenges that I think most of us would face. And then, yeah.
Mr. Manny, I was supposed to ask you this on the latter end of the program, but since you mentioned earlier that 3.6 was doable, just to share with you, I think 3.6, below 3.6 has already happened. I think the lowest tariff we've ever done was 3.25, but of course that was back when prices were a bit more palatable. But to just go down this question for you, how do you think the modules will play in terms of managing the cost to build to enable this kind of pricing? This
Yeah.
LCOE.
Yeah, because of the advent of technology, the improvement, no, like our sponsor have been telling us, with larger capacity of the solar module, then you can bring down by how much? 0.9 cents per watt peak. That's a big incentive. Also improvement also in the other ecosystem, like the inverter, the other mounting. Of course, during this time, there's a slight inflation due to the current situation, but I think things will be gradually normalized. I said 3.6 is somewhat doable because of our experience in other regions, like other places in Bangladesh and other places where the market is really very mature, so the prices are even lower. So I think for the
Understood.
scenario, yeah, sooner or later that one is doable for a larger scale. So if you look at, I think Meralco sometimes they sign even lower, no, lower than 3.
They have.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a sticker rate. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Manny. I'll give Elva. Elva is our corporate sponsor. I'll give her a chance to respond to that. What do you think? There was a presentation earlier by Mr. Lim, but what do you think if you were given a chance to explain in 2 minutes, maybe a top 1 or top 2 competitive advantages of Trina that enables a 3.6 pesos per kilowatt hour rate?
Yeah, 3.6 peso. I think if we change it to US dollar, it's around the 70, right? 70 cent, right?
7 cents, yes.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, just like what Charlie said, because it's the Malaysia company. So actually, they fully understand. Compared with Malaysia, actually, this rate is very good already. Yeah, but because of course, different country, different maybe in Philippines, because the cost is other costs maybe also higher. So that's the reason. Yeah, but for us, we different country, we cannot really change. Say, in the future, the PPA will be lower and lower. So this is also why the solar panel have different panel supply. We try our best to improve our technology, but this way doesn't mean say our panel, our price must be lower and lower. Because for the global situation, especially from last year, this is something we cannot really avoid or we cannot change, like the inflation for all the goods. It's not only for panel, but we do find out it's the price really cannot reduce, Yeah, even after Chinese New Year, actually even our raw material keep changing, keep increasing. So actually this year we already give up the solar panel price can drop, this kind of thinking. And some more, because of the international, some war suddenly come out. And we never know in the future we will come out again. So for us, actually, of course, our priority is always to cost down for different panels without impact our reliability. But what we are doing now is the LCOE, how we can reduce the LCOE. It's not only say we only can reduce the panel cost, also like how we can reduce the BOS cost by using different panel technologies. This is also the reason like our product head, Mr. Lin, present why Trina we spend so much time, also much labor to promote our 670 watt. Even so, we have many different voices. Some people support us, some people didn't support us. But for us, we always work with third party to make sure actually at least using the different technology, you can reduce your LCOE, so you can make your project going. This is what business run. Yeah. So this is also of course, Trina, we also have other technology, not only like some supply also promoting like N-type or IBC. This all technology is good technology to reduce the LCOE. But the issue is for now, we also need to make sure we can cost down all this new technology to support not only Philippines, also other markets, how we can reduce the total EPC cost, the system cost, the LCOE. Yeah, so I think this is even now like for non-utility. Yesterday, actually, China, we also did the white paper for the non-utility to using the 600 watt plus. So soon we will also go for the Philippines and other markets to promote this, because the PPA, this challenge is not only for utility, also for non-utility. And also, like yesterday, we also just launched our 670 to Philippine market. Even though it's not really new product, China we already launched it last year. But why we choose this month to launch it? Because we need to make sure this product is widely used in other countries, has many projects COD. So Philippine customer can also enjoy this technology. And it's a good thing that we have many really reliable partners like Mr. Robert, to support us to using this low voltage to really reduce the LCOE, also including the Daichoric in Malaysia. They also truly support us. So as China, the panel supplier, for us, we will always focus on the manufacturing to provide the solution, not only for panel side, but we will check, we talk with our inverter supplier, mounting structure supplier, or even other small components to help the whole industry moving on for the new period.
Wow. Thank you for that, Elva. Hearing what Elva said, Ms. Wang, I think when you choose Trina, you will not only get a panel manufacturer, but also a technical advisor who will help you in managing the LCOE. Thank you so much,
sure.
Elva.
Even I think maybe one time we can also share, for even though we are only panel supplier, we also have lots of sales too, of course, to support us, but actually also can support EPC's engineering team. We have a inverter matching tool website. So once you click it, you can know which inverter is good to match and whether how you choose it. This is all free. We open it free to every supplier or even customer. So you can enjoy it,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elva. This next question is something that I've been personally looking forward to. So we've heard a lot about the challenges, this issue about foreign ownership, the navigation on the regulatory and the permitting. This next question I'll ask Ms. Cynthia from, Ms. Cynthia is a principal from KPMG. They deal with deal advisory. And please, Ms. Cynthia, if you can, along those lines, you can introduce what your company does, what you do personally and specifically for the solar industry.
Hello. So as Chris mentioned, I'm a principal with KPMG Philippines. And so we deal a lot with transactions in the energy sector. So it's either we help companies raise funds for the project. So even as simple as reviewing your financial model before you show it to the bank, right? That's things that we do in the firm. One thing that I noticed that I said earlier, when on the 3.6 pesos tariff, and my background here is, before I worked in financial advisory. I was VP for finance with Aboitiz Power. So ako strategically, I would say, if you're going to get 3.6 per kilowatt hour on a long-term contract, take your chances na lang with the merchant. Just be a merchant plant and sell to the WSM, because solar, you're producing during peak hours. So when fuel costs get high, the peak price of WSM will also be most probably much higher than 3.6. So I'm speaking to the on the strategic financial side of getting your project revenue. But of course, those are one of the things that as a developer you'd want to sort of balance it out. So I think what trend that I've been seeing in new solar projects lately is that they don't actually try to contract 100% of their output. So that would have been unthinkable probably, let's say, 10 years ago, when all developers and all banks wanted to see fully contracted capacities. before they think the project is viable. Because yun nga, especially for solar, because you know that your peak output is also during the peak demand on the WSM. So they actually reserve some of their outputs to be able to trade or to sort of be a seller in the WSM. So one thing that I'm also seeing as a positive trend is that there are more local conglomerates such as MRC that are entering into the market. Because let's say also probably 10 years ago, you'll be hard, and usually because KPMG is a global firm, we usually get approached by foreign investors, and there's a lot of foreign investments chasing renewable projects. But then you have a 60-40 requirement to participate in the Philippine energy market. And then they would be looking for, are these developers that are developing these projects, credible partners? So we'd have to do due diligence. We'd have to see if the local partner really is capable of, raising its own equity relative to the project. And sometimes, and actually a lot of times, they're not. So I think one good development here is that for a lot of reasons, and also because the emerging ESG requirements of global investors as well, a lot of local established conglomerates that aren't usually, energy isn't really their field. They are looking at really at the market. So given that it's the ecosystem of investors, both local and foreign, in the Philippine renewable energy sector is really greatly improving as well. So it's not just the usual Lopez, Aboitiz, Ayala local developers that are getting good projects and are attracting investors in the sector. So I think that's a very positive development for the Philippines.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Cynthia. There's a lot of things there to take in. But one thing that I'd like to probably comment on is I never took Aboitiz to be a risk taker. So dealing in the merchant space, hearing you say that as a former executive of Aboitiz Power is quite interesting.
No, it's more of like, strategically speaking, if I were trading electricity now, I wouldn't really, contract my output 100% at 3.6 because sayang yung opportunity.
Tama.
Diba?
I'd like to, Miss Cynthia, I'd like to, again, I was meaning to ask you this question a bit later, so we're quite halfway in and still on time, thankfully. I'd like to ask you this follow-up question, in lieu of that question that I was going to ask later on the financing. You mentioned it would be better, maybe as a personal risk preference to go into the market, the spot market instead of a long-term contract. In the issue of financing, you can answer this maybe by saying what are the available sources of financing. But I've heard there's certain financial instruments that you can capitalize on to de-risk your merchant approach. That's maybe contracts for differences, having a PSA with a plan that has an existing PSA. These are I'm hearing in the industry, and if it's something you can share to us, would be really good.
Yeah, well, there really are a lot of things that you can do. For example, given, let's say, the res sector, the retail electricity sector, so you could actually just contract again with an end user just for their peak consumption, and probably tell them we can look at what your I don't know, not all syempre buy from the WSM, but let's say you have a customer that buys a certain portion of its electricity from the WSM, and you tell them what's your average WSM cost for the past X years, and then I'll sell you during the peak when it's highest. So those are the things that that can be looked at in terms of trading. So there is, and that's why I said, if I'm looking at a solar project, so what they do is to do that de-risking thing is you contract the portion of your output enough to cover, let's say, your fixed financing cost. So what's your long-term financing cost, and then that's the one you sort of lock into a particular rate, to a long-term rate, and that would probably be enough to satisfy your creditors, that you would have the cash flow to pay your debt. So and then you could actually go into other arrangements to sort of maximize your revenue from your capacity. So I think it's and it's a sign then of maturity of the market, that that the IPPs, or the power generators, and it's also because the really the catchword, if you tell me how to describe the Philippine electricity sector, ever since EPIRA came in, it has been designed around competitiveness, and it would tend to favor the least cost provider. So that's why in the past, X number of years, the price of the generation share of coal was actually increasing, because the market is actually geared towards chasing the cheapest electricity source. So given nga the trends in fuel pricing over the past year, and exacerbated by the issues in with the war in Ukraine, I think because then if you look at how fuel prices are determined in the Philippines, fossil fuel plants would have a fixed capacity fee and a variable fuel cost component. Then as a solar plant, you could go to a client and say, we can levelize your power cost for the next, for the duration of our contract, and then you won't have to absorb the fuel cost increases that are likely to happen. So a lot of it can, if you have a good commercial team that can think about, and that's why Aboitiz has a great commercial team. So that's why what I got from them. No? So you could think of strategies on how to optimize really your assets given the conditions in the market.
Thank you so much, Miss Cynthia. I'll be receiving a huge bill later, so I'll share it with the panelists for that. Okay, I'll go now. We're quite 2/3 into our section. Again, just a quick question. The renewable energy goals of the Philippines for 2030 is 35%, and I believe 50% by 2040. A quick thumbs up or thumbs down. Please let me know if this is still achievable from all our panelists. 1, 2, 3, thumbs up or thumbs down. It's quite optimistic, guys. So it's quite optimistic, and it shows as well the interest of the market right now. So thank you very much for that. I'll go on to our, the closing part of our forum by asking Mr. Pereja, Robert. There was a mention earlier about some of the big boys, AC Energy, San Miguel, and then I took note of your comment that Pavi is one of the new entrants. So how do you find the local market, and in terms of a distinctive feature, how does Pavi Green set itself apart?
That's a very difficult question. Of course, the environment now in the renewable energy space, particularly here in the Philippines, I have to say it's very challenging. Okay, and the other panelists here would definitely agree with me. This is very challenging. But there is a lot of potential. So what Pavi Green brings to the table is that here is a company fully supported, willing to invest to grow, okay, to grow renewable energy in the Philippines as part of its contribution to nation building. And the company is very serious in expanding its power portfolio. Pavi, the mother company, has been in power since 2011. That's as far as I can recall. No, we have our own Kratos Res. Okay, we have been in the business of supplying power for SPUG, some SPUG areas, Siquijor and Camotes Island, but using conventional means, conventional gensets. But this move to create Pavi Green, okay, Pavi Green was just incorporated last year, but this 1-year-old company is very serious in making a huge contribution in the renewable energy space. And it's not just solar, it's green. We're talking about hydro, we're talking about biomass, we're talking about wind. There is truly a lot of potential. And what's most importantly is that we're willing to partner. Okay. The only way for the industry to really grow and for the Philippines as a country to really grow inclusively into this renewable energy space is more of collaboration. And that's why it's very important for developers like ourselves to work together. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. It's very interesting. One thing that I picked up is that you already own a res, which is Kratos. And I heard in one forum that one of the key differentiators and success factors for developers is if they have the ability to implement complex trading strategies. And having a res is definitely one of the ways that you can do that. Okay, I'll ask this next question right now to May and then to Dennis. We go now to construction. So we've heard a lot of challenges on the development side. For plants that are already, shovel ready or in construction, do the challenges stop? And if not, what are the challenges that you face? Maybe May can start again.
Thanks, Chris. I think for most of the developers, they would agree that we're like broken records saying that the major hurdle, especially for utility scale, is land conversion. We've been hearing this multiple times in every single forum that we've been to. And up to this day, it really is a challenge. So should there be anything that can probably expedite the process or streamline the process, may it be the regulatory framework of the government, maybe to streamline the entire process of doing service contract from pre-development, it would really be of help and it can expedite our projects. Plus lesser cost, you know what I mean. Next would be also, I think, in the very near future, it would be the election, because now in terms of permitting, everything is on hold. No one wants to move because there might be a change in administration, not only nationally, but also locally. So board resolutions are on hold. Even our permits are also on hold. So these are very short-term, but yet very important hurdles that we should be able to overcome. We will be very lucky if it would be the same administration that we have been engaging or say meeting prior to the election, because it will just be a continuation. However, should it be a total change of admin, then we're back to zero, and that means cost as well. So, and then on the development side, I think maybe it has been extraordinary that there's been a volatility in terms of prices because of the pandemic and logistics, but we are very optimistic that this will probably normalize in the next couple of months as we get into the normal operation and economic activities of the Philippines as well as the rest of Southeast Asia, where we source out most of our materials or our equipment as well. So those are just a few. Maybe the rest can be added by our co-panelists. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much, May.
Mhm.
I'll go to Mr. Dennis now. I think Mr. Dennis is ready.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Maybe I'll just add grid connection is another major challenge, as well as, of course, in the earlier stages, land acquisition and land conversion and reclassification is another challenge or hurdle that the developers encounter. Plus, the acquisition of right-of-way would be some of the common hurdles or challenges that would need to be overcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Dennis. Both Dennis and May do concur that land conversion is a showstopper. Some take 2 years, in which case the financing that has been earmarked or the financing institution that has expressed interest will suddenly lose that interest. Right of way as well is one big factor. It could make or break a project as well, together with a grid connection. We're closing now. What I'll do is I'll ask this last question to Ms. Elva Wang, and then I'll ask the panelists in the time that Ms. Elva is giving her answer. The panelists can think already about a 2-sentence closing statement. And the question would be, as it relates to your business or to your position in the market, be it as an EPC, as a developer, as a deal advisor, or as a financing institution. What do you think? What do you think will catalyze the adoption of solar energy? So for this last question, I'll ask Ms. Elva. As the most expensive component, still, in the EPC, in the components for building a solar plant, the solar modules, one item, and sometimes taken for granted. If you were to advise, this is an opportunity for you to advise developers. How would you think? How do you think EPCs and developers should approach, some form of selection criteria for the solar panels? Choose Trina Solar.
Yeah, now from the supplier become the owner already. Yeah. Of course, I think because the panel is even so we have the majority cost portion of the EPC of the total system, but actually panel is very transparent. Not like what we are talking with customer, actually all from the third-party report. So no matter it's a utility or non-utility scale, actually the solar system is not considered very cheap. Some more we provide a 25 to 30 years warranty. So firstly, of course, I think the reliability and how you can guarantee like the system can last for 25 years. Of course, we can never say, oh, I will never bankrupt in the next 25 years. I think it's very hard to say, but we can, at least we can minimize the risk. So firstly, of course, I always recommend customer, if you can, you buy the top 5 panel supplier. Yeah, of course, because of course you also can get lots of like tier 1 list in Bloomberg report. Yeah, but actually it's really different, even so it's tier 1. So for us, if you really can, we always choose you. Let's just say you can choose the top 5 panel supplier. And also secondly, the top 5, you need to find the most reliable, like the bankability. It's very important. I think PV Tech or Bloomberg can give you all the last 10 years data for free. So even if clients need it, we will also provide to you. Yeah. And also because we do business and we manufacture in China, I think currently we not really see a local made panel can be really widely used. So of course, it's still very far, even though it's internet world, but we believe local service is very important. So this is also what Trina we always focus. Even after 2015, maybe there's no FIT, solar business not really considered very good compared to other Southeast Asia region, but we will always put the local staff there. So you need to have a local salesperson in Philippines nearby your site, so you can get your service because you pay for it. Yeah, and another, fourthly, of course, as a supplier, I not think we only provide you the product, also the market information, also the network. So we try to build the ecosystem for every client. And this is also the trust between us, especially like these few years, maybe in the future, it will change very fast. So how we can deliver the market information to your site is very important. Not only like how much is the panel cost for this week and next month. This is too easy as a sales, but for us, we try to build a team to help build just spread the latest market information to clients, to support their financial team or engineering team to make maybe the most correct solution for now. Yeah, and another one, the fifth, of course, for us, we will also share the technology. Maybe currently we have many choices, not only for solar, of course, also inverter, panel, inverter structure, you all have many choices. So for us, we will also just recommend you maybe for this year, which technology maybe is most suitable for you, and next year, what will be the best for you to explore. But maybe you can do a demo first or something. So we'll give different information. So for Trina, actually, our target is not only to be like to be number one in the panel supplier. It's never be our target. Also, not my team's target. Our target is to see how we can build the ecosystem for this market. How we can stay in this market longer to give the best solution for our clients. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elva. I attest to what Elva said. It's very correct. The choice of a panel falls under a broader consideration of the overall technical and commercial evaluation of the plan, and the local support definitely helps, and that's why Elva is here. She will be here most of the time in the market. And so we draw things. Yeah. Thank you, Elva. We draw things now to a close. I'll ask our panelists in the order that I see them on the screen for your closing statements. So 2 sentences. Insofar as it relates to your business, what do you think will help in catalyzing solar adoption in the market? I'll start with Mr. Melvin.
All right. Nice to be here again. Now, being a EPC company with a core business in the CNI sector, so basically removing the cap on the net metering, which is 100 kilowatt. Hopefully, the limitation is going to be removed. Secondly, there should be an equitable payment scheme for net metering. So that's it, Sir Chris.
Thank you so much, Melvin. I'll go next to May. I think you're muted, May.
Yes, thanks, Chris. I think really it all boils down to regulatory framework. If we have a stronger, more structured and reinforced regulatory framework, it will help grow the industry in the Philippines, and everything will just follow.
Thank you. Thank you so much, May. I'll go next to Mr. Manny Yu from Ditrolic.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the invite also. For us, we think if we can remove also the cap of the foreign ownership, that will also be a big plus And like May has been advocating, hopefully the Department of Energy can streamline everything, the application from the local to the national department, and also especially the different department like DNR, DN, especially. So if somebody can just act like a one-stop shop for the investor, for the IPP, then it will help a lot. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Manny. I think Cynthia can help you with how to manage the 60-40. On that note, I'll ask Cynthia to go next.
So I think my two sentences are for let's say over regulation of the industry. Government policies should align with their policies, and incentives should align with their goals. So it's you set ambitious targets for RE development, but you don't give the an enabling environment for it, then it's going to be hard to achieve. The second is that the Philippines is a complex energy market, but as I briefly touched on, there's actually a lot of opportunities within the market to optimize an investment in generation. So what's I noticed in inbound investments is they tend to look at the European model, where you have stable long-term tariffs. When in the Philippine power sector, there are lots of opportunities, even in spag areas. There actually are. It's actually even a more attractive market if you're looking at certain parameters. So yeah, it's a challenging market, but there are a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Yeah, a lot of blue sky. I'll go next to Robert from Pavi.
Okay. Two sentences. Obedient ako sa'yo eh.
Where to start?
Two sentences. The path towards growth in the renewable energy space is really dependent on the support of government in terms of streamlining the different requirements. Renewable energy should be supported in a way that requires less legalistic and stringent paperwork, especially on land conversion and grid interconnection. And lastly, the key to success for this industry is more of collaboration between the different players. Okay, and yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. And then finally, we move to Mr. Dennis.
Hi. I agree with the comment of Manny earlier that the relaxation of the 60-40 requirement on renewable energy projects, in particular solar and wind, because as you know, under DOE regulations, geothermal and biomass can already be up to 100% foreign owned. So there are ways to structure 60-40 companies in the Philippines that have provided some comfort to foreign investors. But I think as the direction of the government is really to liberalize foreign investment, we've done it in public services, retail trade, and I think it's high time that there should be a relaxation in the 60-40 requirement on solar and other renewable energy projects that are subject to the limitation. The concern is it's much harder with respect to renewable energy because there has to be an amendment of the Constitution. Our Constitution limits the foreign investment in what it calls the forces of potential energy. So that's it's a constitutional provision that needs to be amended, and it's more complicated to amend it in comparison to just statute or a law.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. And thank you as well to all our panelists. In terms of a personal wish list, I wish there are more projects for companies like us who are building the projects for you. I'd like to just ask Priyanshi if we have some time for questions. I do want to manage the time and be on time.
Yes, sir, you can take the questions.
Okay, so there's just a few on the screen, and thank you for those who can stay. The first question is from Mr. Gary Espino, and I hope that the dynamic earlier that I introduced was able to answer this. But in terms of the auction price of 3.6, he's asking here for any tips, and as well as what are the enabling factors that can do this. Any of our panelists can probably give a quick answer to that.
I'll give a quick answer to my friend Gary Espino. Hi, Gary. Thank you for tuning in. You know, the answer lies here in this group, and it has the name of Elva Wang. If
very good.
If Elva can give a big time discount for the Philippine market, then 3.6 will be very doable.
Now the
sure,
challenge.
We will try definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. I'll go on to the next question. For the 100% import of equipments, is it allowed? And are there local content requirements from local authority? I'll give a chance first to the panelists to answer. If not, I can take this answer. Maybe from one of the EPCs. If none, I'll give a quick answer on this. 100% import of equipments is allowed, but you may not want to do it for commercial reasons. So major equipment, and it will be all about the commercial dimension of it. So some items you can import more competitively abroad, some in the Philippines. And finally, the last. Sorry, Mr. Dennis, did you want to add to that?
Yes. I just wanted to add with respect to the question on the local content requirement. So yes, as far as I know, there is no such local content requirement. Although under the Renewable Energy Act, there's an incentive given to the developer who purchases machinery equipment from a domestic manufacturer. So there's a tax credit equivalent to 100% of the value of the VAT and custom duties that would have been paid on renewable energy machinery and equipment had these items been imported. So there's an incentive under the law to source locally, but not a mandatory requirement for the local content.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. I'll probably take these last two questions, and for those who want to ask more questions, I believe the session organizer will be able to provide you the means to communicate with the panels directly as well. So the second to the last question is, with additions of solar projects to the grid, do you foresee a need for accurate weather and generation forecast requirements by the grid utilities, or are they already in place? Can any of our panelists give some insight into this? If not, I can answer this quickly as well. At least with the NGCP, and with the IMAP, the commercial market in the Philippines, there are already requirements for the accuracy of generation forecast, as well as penalty mechanisms if you are not able to implement those forecasts. To what level they are really being implemented, at least from the penalization side, I'm not particularly sure, but there are already rules for accuracy, for timeliness of reporting, and for the parameters that you would need to submit. And for the last question, so how are wind and solar different? And so there's the PERC 95 and the MAP. How are wind and sun different from water and steam that require a constitution amendment? While hydro and geothermal already allow 100% foreign investment. Very, very specific question. I think maybe Mr. Dennis can give insight into this.
Yes, Chris. With respect to geothermal, So there is an exception in the Philippine Constitution that allows up to 100% foreign ownership of large-scale mineral and oil and gas projects. So the Department of Energy has issued regulations which essentially consider steam as a mineral, and that it could fall under the exception in the Constitution allowing up to 100% foreign ownership. So geothermal service contracts can be up to 100% foreign owned under that regulation that was issued by the DOE. And biomass is actually it's not regarded by the DOE as similar to wind and solar, as these are not really similar in nature to wind power or solar power, and that's why they now allow up to 100% foreign ownership of biomass. So for wind and solar, they're considered to be forces of potential energy at the moment by the Department of Energy, which is the reason the 60/40 requirement is applied.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. And again, thank you as well to all our panelists. A round of applause to you. And I'll turn you back over to Priyanshi.
Thank you very much, all of you. A big thumbs up, because I've seen that, and it's really, something new I've seen from Chris sir. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much, all our esteemed panelists, for this wonderful session. And very special thanks to Chris sir for superbly managing the session. Your industry insight and charismatic ability to engage both the audience and the speakers brought the session to life, making them more informative, thought-provoking, and entertaining as well. So thank you everyone for extending your time and support. Thank you all the panelists. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and see you around.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.